back to my podcast. So, if you didn't watch the first part of this interview slash podcast, I encourage you to watch part one first. Today we are talking again with Alice Dee. She is an animal rights advocate, organizer, vegan author, and educator, and the founder of We Care About Animals. We were last talking about the most urges abuses happening in the animal agriculture industry. Alice, do you want to continue on this topic?
Well, thank you again for having me on vegaani. And this is a very painful topic for me to talk about, but I think it's very important that it be discussed because there are so many abuses happening in the factory farming industry. We'd already talked about the terrible harms and emotional stress that dairy cows are forced to go through. And their male calves, which are kept in very tight confinement. But I also wanted to mention the plight of mother pigs kept in the animal agriculture industry because they're kept in farrowing crates that are so small they can't even turn around. They're basically trapped into metal bars, and they can't turn around to comfort their babies. It's extremely stressful for them. We're talking about the fifth most intelligent type of animal on the planet behind humans and apes and dolphins. They are highly intelligent. They can even play video games. They're so smart and able to, understand what the task is. So, to put them into a tiny little crate for most of their lives, or at least while they're having their babies, is extremely stressful for them. Many forward-thinking locales and jurisdictions like California and Switzerland, for example, are starting to understand that this is completely inhumane, and they're starting to, ban farrowing crates. But it's still standard operating procedure, and it was what I was taught in my animal science classes is the way to handle the. It's animal science is not about treating animals well. It's about forcing them into tight confinement so they can be used and abused, if you like, for food. So the other thing that is very, very terrible, and has to do with the slaughter process, because no animal gets out alive from these places. Just every animal is killed and slaughtered, and many animals are scalded alive during slaughter, which is, of course, they're not. Sometimes they're not stunned, and they go into these scalding tanks. And are exposed to extreme pain. I mean, you can imagine being dumped into boiling water. Well, that's what they experience, and it's incredibly painful. And these aren't accidents either. They're built into the business model of factory farming that I personally observed during my animal science training, which I believe is nothing less than a system of industrialized animal cruelty for profit. It's a shameful business.
Yeah, I've also I've also read a lot about Dr. Jerry Vlasic also, and how as an ex-animal tester that's now fighting against animal agriculture against animal testing as well.
Well, that's in the scientific element, and as a scientist myself, I was very offended by the treatment of animals in science, and I deliberately went into a type of science that did not have any animal cruelty involved in it. I went into theoretical physical chemistry, and there was no animal science. There was no animal abuse in that profession. It was mostly computers, so there, and we weren't particularly abusing them, so I felt okay about it. Yeah, it was.
Let me look. What's the next question? Sorry, I was going to the. issue?
Well, I could talk about why veganism is essential for activists,
Yeah,
conservationists, and environmentalists.
yeah,
Well,
that's
well, I think if you have an an ist in the sense that you believe that you have a calling in life to do something important for the world, then you have to understand that your actions, your as an activist, should align with your values. It's really kind of contradictory and hypocritical to fight for wildlife while funding industries that destroy habitats like animal agriculture. You can't advocate for compassion while eating animals. We have a lot of religious leaders talking about compassion. Well, hold on a second. Are you eating, dead animals? Because if you're eating dead animals that were killed, that's not compassionate. Nothing compassionate or humane ever happens in a slaughterhouse. The only thing that happens is the animals are never sent there. That would be a compassionate and humane thing, because humane means kind. Doesn't mean a way to murder animals so that you can eat them. I'm sorry.
yeah,
There's nothing about
it,
humanity or kindness in slaughter,
yeah,
and veganism is the ethical baseline. I believe veganism is the ethical baseline for anyone committed to justice, sustainability, or conservation of non-human animals. If you're working on animal rights activism, it's pretty much expected that you're vegan, that you do not use animals abusively in any way, shape, or form, that you don't use them for food, for clothing, for entertainment, for any such reason, and I think that's right. I mean, activists need to be as aligned with their cause as possible. So I think veganism is one of the most powerful ways that individuals can reduce harm to animals with their own lifestyle choices. It's basically an ethical boycott of animal abuse, and that's you need to be participating in that boycott. It's if you care about animals, you should be boycotting harm to them. So that's how I've personally gone forward, and it's how when I've observed, real high quality animal rights activists in action, in practice, they are generally all vegan.
hmm um, yeah. I show so the people right now the definition of veganism from the animal from the vegan society, so people can have a basic on the idea from what it's about also.
Um, yeah, I think that uh, the Vegan Society's definition is includes the phrase whenever possible and practical, and I think that's important because you have to understand that veganism isn't an absolute boycott. It's a boycott whenever uh, possible and practical.
Yeah, but
So
for
if you're
most people in
if
the world, it
if
is completely practical.
it is completely possible and practical. Yes, and my view is if you live near a grocery store you can afford to shop at, then there's no excuse for someone who cares about animals to be anything but vegan. Basically, it is possible and it is practical for you to be vegan. Um,
uh, so okay, next question. How do you use health and environment to research to reach people how aren't motivated by ethics?
Oh, right. Well, first of all, I guess I should mention that veganism is an ethical stance. That is precisely what it is. It's not a diet, so be very careful about that when you're talking to vegans, because if you start to just talk about food, they're going to kind of put you in the category of a plant-based dieter who is looking just to take animals out of their diet for some reason, usually for health reasons. So veganism is defined as a philosophy and way of living that seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of animals, humans, and the environment. And in dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. So that does involve reading labels. And being attentive to what's in your food, perhaps asking whether a food item is vegan at the restaurants you might go to. But in terms of health and environmental research, to reach people who aren't motivated by ethics, in other words, to reach people who might be interested in a plant-based diet, science bases health and environmental data on credible sources. We need to find peer review research, government documents, World Health Organization data sheets, things along that line. You want to make sure you're basing your comments and your advocacy in facts, in science-determined facts. So, as a scientist, I am very comfortable with reading the peer-reviewed literature and doing research to support my viewpoints. So that's kind of something I specialize in. When people see that plant-based diets reduce chronic disease risk and that animal agriculture is the leading driver of climate change, deforestation, and environmental degradation, they realize that veganism isn't fringe. It's an ethical and science-based approach to reducing harm to animals and the environment, which most people, tend to care about. We care about whether animals are hurt. If there was a dog hit by a car, we would consider stopping and giving them help. And the environment, that's where we live. That's our home. We want to make sure that our home is taken care of. So, and finally, personal health. Gosh, if you're not healthy, you've got nothing. Really, it makes you not want to live to be unhealthy. So let's really, really, really prioritize how healthy we are, not just as activists, but as the world is in general, because it increases our motivation and enjoyment of life. And life is a great gift. And if we don't take care of our body, our temple, then we have failed, and will unfortunately have negative consequences. So for many, their health or environmental concerns are the doorway that eventually brings them to a plant-based diet and then leads to an ethical awakening regarding the animals abused by factory farming. So once they have stopped eating animals, they can more easily open their heart to animals who are being harmed in factory farms.
What statistics help vegetarians to take the final step to veganism?
Oh, that's a good question, because a lot of people, their first step is vegetarian. I know for mine, for me, it certainly was. I didn't I understand that killing was wrong, obviously, but I didn't quite understand that exploitation was wrong. I didn't understand that the animals that were exploited were all killed. And that it was just, it was kind of this nice face that they would put on the industry by putting like a happy cartoon cow on the side of the milk truck or something silly like that, to get you to think that maybe that cow was actually happy, when the reality is that cow is so unhappy and exploited and impregnated repeatedly, forcibly. So, no, I think you need to have a strategy to move beyond vegetarianism if you care about animals. Vegetarian might be the first step in a transition, but remember, veganism is your goal. And so, in terms of strategies, I would focus on supporting someone who's trying to make that transition, avoiding judgment. While vegetarian is certainly ethically wrong, it is an improved state than from eating meat. So I think that it's a good move in the right direction. And I also think that vegetarians generally care about animals, because that's why they're vegetarian. It might be for religious reasons, say if you're a Hindu or have you've adopted Hinduism, but I think that for the most part it's a transition. to the most ethical dietary position, which is veganism. I can certainly relate to the possibility that many vegetarians simply don't know the vegan diet is safe. That was my personal experience. I went vegetarian and stayed vegetarian because even though I had seen the horrors of factory dairy farming and egg farming, because I thought it wasn't safe to not eat those things. Now, it's in hindsight, it's ridiculous, right? You can think, well, I'm not a baby cow. I'm not a baby anything. Why should I be eating baby food and that it was meant for another species? How totally weird is that?
Yeah.
But it didn't occur to me because everybody around me was eating it, so I thought it was necessary. And then the next thing is eggs. I'm a great ape. I'm not meant to eat the menstruation of another species. In fact, the only creature that's really probably meant to eat that is the chicken themselves. Eating an egg is not kind for me to do. It involves, usually involves chickens crammed into tiny cages, like three into a little tiny cage. They can barely turn around and for their entire short lives, and they're killed very early, at just over a year usually of life in this horrible experience. So it's a terrible life. You absolutely, just following the golden rule, there's no way you would ever want to be trapped in this sort of situation. It would be like the people that were harmed in Nazi Germany by being put into concentration camps. These are horrible, horrible places, and the animals that are kept in there experience extreme stress from tight confinement that they're not properly adapted to experience. It's imagine being in a prison cell with just on top of other people. You could barely move around. And then you do lay an egg, and it goes on a conveyor belt. You're actually fed your own. You're fed feces. The chickens. I don't know if you know that, but that's part of the component of factory farm chicken feed. So I think we really need to move away from these sorts of cruelty behaviors because the option is easy. Once you've realized that veganism isn't fringe, that it's an ethical and science-based approach to helping animals, the environment, and your health, I think that then it's vegetarians tend to be willing to make that final shift. So let them know that it's safe. Let them know about what they're supporting and what cruelty they're supporting. And once they understand those things, they may want to change, but they may need some guidance. How do I replace these foods with something else? So I offer practical food swaps, recipes, and a sense of community, inviting them to our vegan potlucks to feel included. I'll also even offer to go shopping with them so they can see what I buy at the store. And that tends to make things very grounded. I remember when I first went vegan, the person who had first told me that it was safe, the person basically who facilitated my transition from vegetarianism, she took me shopping. It was so sweet of her, It was a really nice thing that she did, and it made me feel more comfortable in making vegan choices. So most people who care about animals just need encouragement and a sense that they're not doing it alone to choose to do the right thing.
Okay. How do you tailor activism to different audience? And vegans, vegetarians, environmentalists, health seekers.
Oh, okay. Well, different audiences are progressed in different ways in different areas. So for vegans, for example, I'm really just like, hey, I'm actually encouraging them to move into animal rights activism because I think that's the next logical step, not just simply boycotting, but actually getting active in relieving the suffering of the animals. For vegetarians, it's more about encouraging their transition, showing them and informing, because I assume that if they're vegetarian, they care about animals. So, basically helping them understand how animals are suffering in factory farms for dairy and egg production. For environmentalists, they tend to respond to climate data. They also might respond to information about the high rate of deforestation being caused directly by animal agriculture, and also perhaps the killing off of wildlife as a result of animal agriculture, which is we've gone down to I think only about 4% of the life on this planet is now wild. So that's a major environmental issue. And health seekers, well, they tend to respond to medical research, peer-reviewed research, information from the World Health Organization or from other reputable sources that help people understand the health implications. So, yeah, I think Harvard School of Public Health has been doing some excellent work. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, various high-profile doctors, like you'll see nutritionfacts.org is an excellent source of health-related information on plant-based diets. Um, um, and I think the core message and the focus on compassion, justice, and liberation stay the same, but the entry point changes depending on the listener, whether they're coming from a vegan perspective, vegetarian perspective, environmentalist, or health seeker. All of those types of people have very good reasons to go vegan.
What role does society and media plays in modern activism?
Well, I think the one helpful tool that activists have right now is social media. And social media is, I think it's essential for modern day activism. It really is. Platforms like Facebook really help activists build community. Instagram helps them tell visual stories, which can be very powerful. Twitter amplifies messages quickly and reaches journalists and policymakers, who are actually making laws. So social media allows us to bypass traditional media gatekeepers. We have had for a long time problems getting our message into mainstream media. Mainstream media does not want to promote animal, kindness to animals. They might say they do, but that's not what they actually do. They make a lot of money from promoting animal agriculture. So the nice thing about social media is you can use it to speak directly to the public, and hopefully to touch the minds and hearts of people that might be open to a vegan lifestyle and animal rights activism. So it's a powerful tool that every activist should use for education of the public, the mobilization of fellow activists, and affecting eventual cultural change. The nice thing is it's pretty much free to use, so it's something that you do get quite a lot of engagement for and from. So I would highly recommend being on social media if you are an animal rights activist.
Okay, what do you think if what kind of things um what do you recommend for people that are a bit more shy? So like people that are don't like to be in the public eye.
Well, then I think talking to people, person to person, meeting them where they are, finding out what their interests are. There's a group called Anonymous for the Voiceless, where people, it is in a public setting, but at the same time, you can wear a mask and you can just stand there with a computer or a TV set showing the what actually goes on in factory farming. And I think that's a very powerful communication that you can make and a statement that you can make. So I do recommend, if you're interested in that get in touch with your local chapter. It is a worldwide group. They have chapters in all different areas. I run one of the local chapters, so I'm very familiar with their approach. It's very structured. It's very clear, and I think it's is very well intended. So it leads to the and it's converted many people's thinking towards veganism.
Um, 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 what what does it mean to confront in kind food p words online?
Oh, I think right. Uh, so basically, what we'll see is a lot, on television and on maybe social media, as well as just any media that you're absorbing, is the unkind foods. So this is meat, eggs, dairy, and they'll be promoting them online. I think we need to challenge social media posts that glamorize animal products. This does not mean attacking people personally, but instead offering compassionate reminders and vegan alternatives. I sometimes say things like, someone died for that, or something along those lines. It helps people understand that there is a victim behind these products. Remember, uh, one of the key points I think is this. Even though people do have a choice about what they eat, they can choose choices that do not victimize others, like vegan alternatives, or they can choose choices that do, like non-vegan alternatives. It is very clear that if something is not vegan, there's an animal being victimized. So, if you just like, for example, if you make choices that victimize children, that's not an ethical choice. Similarly, choices that victimize animals are not ethical choices for people who care about animals. And so,
Yeah,
I
I
think we really need to start shifting the cultural narrative around what we consider normal food toward kinder options. And by objecting to people glamorizing animal products, I think we start to do that. I mean, every image we share on social media either reinforces or challenges the status quo. So we need to be mindful of remaining caring toward animals and sharing things that are supportive of their suffering, or supportive of ending their suffering.
just one thing about it. I personally started to say, instead of vegan food, vegan approved food, because vegans don't approve of animals to be eaten. What do you think about that? Just a random thing. Oh, I don't hear you anymore for some reason. Okay, there's something that break, I think.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
now I hear you again.
Yes.
Okay, now I hear you not anymore.
I think I'm here.
Okay, now I hear you again.
Okay.
Okay, so do you want to? Okay, so I was saying that I often use the term vegan approved because vegans don't approve of animal body parts and secretions. What do you think of that way of changing the way we use language?
Oh, I like that actually. Vegan approved. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a nice way of putting it. I usually just say it's vegan, but it means the same thing. And I like the fact that you're putting approval
yeah,
in the phrase, to indicate that we approve of it. We
yeah,
think it's cool. We
yeah.
care about animals. That's a cool alternative. Yeah, go for
Mhm,
it. It's vegan.
mhm. Um, okay, let's continue with question 16. How do uh, participants uh, legislation
Petitions.
petitions?
Pe- peti-
Yeah,
petitions. Yes.
yeah, legislations and lead
Litigation.
Oh yeah, that's a hard word to pronounce. Litigation fit into grassroots activism.
Well, petitions, legislation, and litigation are all fairly formal legal processes that an activist should learn how to. If you want to be really effective, you should learn how to do these things. Grassroots activism raises awareness, builds public pressure, but laws and lawsuits help create lasting structural change in our legal system. And we really need both. Petitions are very helpful because they show public support to lawmakers, and often people who care about animals and understand that there's animal abuse going on will be more than happy to sign petitions as a form of activism, and these can help influence legislative actions. So legislation for its part sets new standards in law. Litigation holds animal abusers accountable for their actions, and together these forms of activism and these activism tools move a law-based society like we have in the United States, for example, toward recognizing animals as sentient beings with rights. Eventually, we would like to see them provided with legal rights. That's what the animal rights movement is about getting animals legal rights to protect them from abuse, like we protect humans and their children.
Yeah. So the goal is for animals to get the concept of personal, like we talked about in part one, if I remember.
Right, and I think the one of the interesting things about our San Francisco National Animal Rights Day event is that it takes place on UN Plaza, right underneath the obelisk in which is engraved the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So we're declaring animal rights, or declaring our desire to see animals have rights, right in the same place that action was memorialized by the that action by the United Nations was memorialized in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Um, what are your views on adopting and breeding and the ethics of companion animals?
Oh, well, adoption saves lives, there's no question. However, when a vegan adopts a carnivorous animal like a cat or a dog, they're often faced with a quandary or a challenge, because they don't really want to kill another creature to feed that carnivorous animal. So I do provide an alternative to that in my book, Vegan Dogs and Cats, where I talk about how you can start feeding compassion at home, feeding a plant-based diet safely. This is a nutritionally adequate, species-specific plant-based diet. And we focus, instead of focusing on ingredients, we focus on nutrients. Is the animal getting all the nutrients that they need to remain healthy and thrive? And if that's the case, then that can be obtained from a plant-based diet, which it can, then a vegan can feel comfortable moving forward in that direction. So I do have a private Facebook group dedicated, and a Facebook page dedicated to that practice. And if anyone is interested in that, they can look it up. It's called Vegan Dogs and Cats. And yeah, so adoption definitely saves lives. I've practiced adopting myself. I have rescues, and it's been very interesting to study scientifically the process of feeding dogs, in particular, a plant-based diet. So cats are a little more complicated. Dogs respond well to it because they can convert beta carotene to preformed vitamin A, but cats need synthetic preformed vitamin A, so that's very important for them and for their health. There's some other fine points with cats. For example, their urinary pH needs to be at a certain level in order for them not to form crystals in their urine. So that the urinary acidity sometimes needs to be adjusted, and that can be done with things like cranberries to adjust the urinary acidity. So there are some fine points, and it's not something where you just jump in and start feeding your dog and cat, fruits and greens like apes like ourselves eat. No, that's not what's done. It's quite different, and you can read my book for details on that. yeah, also the Facebook page is quite uh, has a lot of science-based information on it, and it's very clear what we're trying to do. We're not just advocating that you
Yeah.
just start feeding them exactly what you're eating, but instead that you feed them a species-specific, nutritionally adequate plant-based diet.
Yeah,
So it.
I did show also people your book.
Oh, you did. Okay,
Yeah.
good, good, good.
Oh, you were
So
talking.
the next topic, the next topic was on breeding, and commercial breeding, breeding for profit, definitely adds to overpopulation, which results in death in shelters. So this often involves commercial exploitation, which is very problematic and not suitable for vegan ethics. So commercial breeding would not be considered a vegan practice. It's exploitation of living creatures. They have to understand that when shelters are full, healthy animals start getting euthanized. So buying from commercial breeders should definitely be avoided when shelters are full. We also advocate for a nuanced approach to sterilization. This is spaying and neutering, the desexing of animals, because it does. While it can be medically necessary at certain times, say, for example, in the case of testicular cancer or something like that, but we really sincerely question routine involuntary procedures that involve body part removal, since we generally object to those being performed on healthy humans. A lot of humans don't understand that it is not considered ethical to remove the testes and ovaries of healthy humans. That is just not an ethical behavior because it severely damages the endocrine system. So the goal in adopting animals is the animal's well-being, and this can definitely suffer after sterilization.
Yeah, let's continue with the next question. Um, um, how does veganism intersect with environmental actions and conserv- conservation?
Conservation.
Yeah.
Okay, so climate and environmental action, that sort of thing. Well, animal agriculture is the leading driver of deforestation, the leading source of water use, and the leading source, one of the leading sources of greenhouse gas emissions. It actually emits more greenhouse gases than the transportation sector. So that car you're driving around is not emitting nearly as much greenhouse gas emissions as the animals that you're eating. So this is very important to remember. If you are this is one reason why activists like Greta Thunberg, for example, she's vegan for the animals, but believe me, she definitely understands that a plant-based diet is better for climate change. Veganism is one of the most effective ways, and one individual can reduce their environmental footprint. I point this out in my environmental book, What You Can Do for Your Planet. That a plant-based diet is one of the first and foremost things that you can do to improve, from a personal standpoint, to improve your planetary footprint. So I really do think that if you're an environmentalist and you're not vegan, you're doing it wrong. You're being inconsistent, and you really need to start thinking about changing your diet because it's a big factor of what you actually contribute to the environmental degradation. Conservation and veganism are inseparable in my view. Protecting ecosystems mean reducing financial support for the very cruel industries that destroy them because they don't care. They obviously don't care about animals, and they really don't care about the environment, and they really don't care about the future of humanity. They really just care about the money that they're
Yeah.
getting in their pockets.
That
It's
is,
very, very, very selfish industry. You
yeah.
cannot be, I guess, exploiting animals and killing animals in this horrible way and not be an incredibly selfish person.
Yeah, no.
It's just
Also,
the word.
also, they are basically are the basically the main reason why we can't feed the world. I mean, we have something like 10 billion land animals that are killed nowadays every year, and we cannot even feed less uh, than 8 billion humans. something like 8 billion humans. That sounds kind of insane. That
Well,
sounds amazing.
I just did the exact numbers the other day for a meme that I posted to Facebook, and it was we're killing 70 billion, 70 billion land animals every year, and the amount of fish that are being killed are in the tons. They're in the billions of tons. I mean, it's so huge that it's not even measurable. So 70 billion land animals. 70 billion animals are dying unnecessarily to feed a species that never in its entire life ever has to eat a dead body. It's so sad. And we have 683 million humans, millions of humans, 683 million humans who are experiencing hunger in their lives. Now, if we, you know, took all the feed that is going to feed those animals and we put that, made it because the human edible part of that feed and fed it to humans instead, we could eliminate world hunger easily and support a much higher human population. Instead, we have these people starving because some other people want to unnecessarily eat dead animal bodies. So I think that we really need to change that. I think it's a key part of caring not just about animals, but also about our fellow humans on this planet. If you care about world hunger, you really need to start promoting a vegan diet because it'll help solve that problem dramatically.
Mm, what do you hope the animal rights movement? Um, what do you give hope in the animal rights movement today?
Well, I think the one of the things that is very um, helpful to support the animal rights movement is the rise of plant-based food alternatives. Seeing, even though some people criticize them, I think it's very important for people to, when they're transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, to be able to have some of the foods that they're traditionally used to eating, or foods that give that impression. And that's what the plant-based food alternatives are. They give you an opportunity to transition without great discomfort. And so I think that's a helpful thing that will support animal rights activism because it lets more people transition comfortably. And certainly, I'm thrilled to see the extent of the global participation in animal rights events like National Animal Rights Day. That's been just amazing. We had a wonderful turnout and some excellent speakers at the San Francisco event last year, and we're looking forward to another inspiring event on June 7th at UN Plaza. Well, it's tentatively scheduled for UN Plaza. Yeah, we still have to wait to hear back from the city, but it's definitely something we would like to see. You know, uh, lots of people coming out because I think it's important, and the speakers are fantastic. It's very inspiring to hear people who've dedicated their lives to animal rights, talking and sharing their experience and their ethical views. And I think the growing public awareness about the plight of animals in the animal agriculture industry is really important. Vegan activism, animal rights activism, all of this I think gives me hope because more people are being exposed to the cruelty of animal agriculture, and they're questioning old assumptions about animals and their exploitative use. I mean, my book, We Care About Animals, or Why We Care About Animals, helps people understand the science of animal sentience and why it perhaps should have been titled Why We Should Care About Animals, because they, have intelligence, they have consciousness, and they are hurt by cruelty, and we can be kind to them and understand that they appreciate being treated kindly. I really am excited that young people, especially like yourself and others that I've spoken to, are embracing veganism and animal rights activism as the old school of veganism gets starts to retire, we need more young people to come forward and take the banner onwards. So I'm really happy to mentor people and to help them get involved in activism and embrace veganism and animal rights activism for future generations. I mean, change on this scale and of this type is slow, but we believe it's happening and it's accelerating. So we do certainly have a lot to be thankful for in the sense that media, social media in particular, has enabled us to expand the reach of veganism from just person to audience, and that's very important.
Okay. Um, what is your future? What is your version? Fu- fu- um, sorry, I wake up. What is your vision for total animal liberation, and how can the listeners get involved? Can you introduce me, myself, or to, or can you ask, or can I just ask you to do that?
Oh, okay. Well, my vision for total animal liberation and how I tend to define it is a world where animals are not treated as property, where they're given unalienable rights like we currently give to humans. I would envision a world where animals live safe and free from exploitation, tight confinement, and slaughter. And so, if you've ever been to an animal sanctuary, this is a place where animals live safe and free. I mean, it's not like they are within bounds because they have pastures and so on. But those are like homes. We have homes, we have yards. So they live in homes, little shelters, and they have yards to walk around in. They're not in tight confinement, and they're not being exploited. They're not being, repeatedly impregnated. They're not being, and they're certainly not being slaughtered. So it is a much more beautiful and harmonious way of keeping animals. It's like keeping like you keep your dog or your cats. You don't exploit them. You don't tightly confine them. You don't slaughter them. Um,
Yeah,
these are all things that are
they
part
know
of the.
they necessary for a place for all the animals that will come free when people stop eating animals.
Yeah, yes, and we expect this to be a gradual transition. That it's not something where it will happen overnight necessarily. We expect that these, the laws that prohibit animal agriculture will allow for a tailing off period, within say, a reasonable amount of time. And this way, we don't see, an immediate die off of all these beautiful species that we have domesticated. But instead, we would envision the transition to sanctuary farms. So from factory farms to sanctuary farms, where animals are kept for the joy simply of keeping them, because cows are absolutely beautiful, sheep are delightful and lively, and goats are very quirky and I guess mischievous, and all the and chickens are adorable too. So all of these creatures that we have domesticated, pigs are super smart and can be kept very much like dogs. Can be potty trained. They guard the house. So we have, they have the opportunity to integrate these creatures into our lives without exploiting them and harming them. And I think recognizing their personhood and respecting their right to live their own lives is very key. They can still be kept as companions, but they are kept as family members, members of the family. And that's the key. It's like we would keep our own children. We keep these animals to give them good lives and to love them and to have their companionship and share our companionship with them. So as far as how listeners can get involved, well, the first step really is, I would say, going vegan. If you need any advice on that, there's you can go to the Vegan Society's page. Um, Also, joining local activist groups, things like Anonymous for the Voiceless, pretty much worldwide at this point. There'll probably be a chapter near you in your major cities. Attending National Animal Rights Day events. These events are annual, and this particular year they're going to all be on the same day on June 7th around the world. And speaking up whenever possible. When you see an opportunity on social media, be gentle. Remember, be kind. Veganism is all about kindness, and it's about compassion and doing the right thing. So be kind. But every voice matters. Every person that can get involved, every person that's willing to lift their voice and talk to others, it matters. You matter. You're important. And your actions count. Liberation of our fellow creatures is a collective effort. We're going to need everybody, and it's time. It's really, really, truly time for that to happen. And people can also get started by reading my book, Why We Care About Animals. If want to have some good scientific information to share with others. I also have another book called Why Vegan, which lays out the thinking on the topic of veganism. And you can visit our website, www.wecareaboutanimals.org, for more information on the general areas of focus of our grassroots activism organization, and also www.thenard.org. That's THENARD.org, and that is for the National Animal Rights Day group. And so anyway, I really thank you for having me on today, vegaani, and happy to talk to you and others. And if anybody's interested, I am on Facebook, so you can look me up there. You just type in Alice and then D and then vegan, and usually I'll come up as one of the first options there. So again, thank you for listening, everybody, and I really hope that more of you will choose to a plant-based or vegan lifestyle.
Thanks for having you. And so, I probably will. I probably will have Alice for some other topics because she has written a lot of books about a lot of topics, and she is also always thinking about new things to write about and to think about. So maybe there's some other topic. Let's see. Yeah. So, okay. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you so much, vegaani. I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, it was also nice to have you as a guest.